Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to The Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Terry Kilakos, chartered real estate and mortgage broker, as well as president and founder of Northeast Real Estate and Mortgage Agency. And today we're talking about getting your home ready for the winter chill.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Listen, don't shoot the messenger. I don't know if you guys are aware, but winter is around the corner. So what happens in winter? We got to get our homes ready. Particularly, we got to get our country houses ready. If you're anything like myself and my wife, who's sitting right here in front of me, we procrastinate on certain things. And when you procrastinate, bad things happen. So we're going to talk about some very funny stories that we had to endure, had to go through over the winter months years ago at our country place, which taught us some lessons. But we're always learning lessons. Anyways, joining me, we have my beautiful wife, co-host, and vice president extraordinaire of Northeast, Merav Marciano.
Oh, you didn't know how to pronounce my name?
Yeah, no, I butchered it for a second. I have no clue why. For any questions that you guys might have, feel free to give us a call at the office during the week at the office at 514-680-4674, or you can visit us online at northeastmortgages.com. You can also go to our new website, which is nordest.ca. Still working out a few bugs on it, but you can go there and check it out and give us some feedback on it. And if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca. So Merav, let's kick this off, like straight from the top. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Winter is coming. Again, don't shoot the messenger. Many people spend their Thanksgiving weekend, which is next weekend, preparing their house for their winter season. And a lot of times people will shut it down for the winter. A lot of times they, decide that Thanksgiving weekend is the last weekend that they're going to be going up there. So today I want to look at some of the important things that we need to do to prepare the house for winter. And
it's not just the country house. We're going to look at the city house too.
Of course.
There's preparations to do in our home in general.
Yeah.
So we did learn the hard way with respect to our country house what you should and shouldn't do. And winter comes a little bit earlier in the country. We learned the hard way.
Yeah, so we have for those of you who listen to the show, you know that we have a place up in Saint Adolphe. And Saint Adolphe, especially where our house is, we are about 1,600 feet above sea level, give or take. I think it's about something to that effect. So when it is raining, for example, in Saint-Sauveur, it's actually snowing where our house is. And, it might be plus 10 in the city in Montreal, and it's, minus 5. We've seen that much of a difference at our place. So you kind of get used to it and you say, it's nice, the weather's nice in Montreal, but up north, it's a different climate. And all of a sudden, you end up getting caught with problems. And, I'm going to just share a couple of them that we've had. I mean, we've had burst pipes over the years, which just, disastrous. I've come back to the country house to find a big ice cube in the toilet bowl.
Which cracked the toilet bowl.
Which cracked the entire toilet bowl. So these are all little lessons. And, the big one, which, you would tend to think after all these years of us actually owning the place, we learn our lessons. But last year we actually had a problem as well, which was with our gazebo that we have outside. So we have one of these gazebos that
has the fabric on top.
Yeah, has the fabric on top. And we got up there for Thanksgiving. We had a good weekend. It was a long weekend. Kids were having fun. I'm like, let's not take anything down. Let's just leave things be. It was a beautiful weekend. We'll keep it going until, as long as we possibly can. And the weekend after, we didn't go to the country. And I think it might have even been 2 weeks. And then next thing I know, I get a
massive snowstorm.
I get a phone call from our neighbor, and she says, "Hey Terry, just to let you know, your gazebo is like turned into like an accordion on the deck because there was a snowfall, and the weight of the snow, just like, forget about tearing the fabric, it literally destroyed the gazebo."
Yeah.
Because
it's bent metal.
Yeah, because I didn't take the 5 minutes that I needed to take to actually take the fabric off of it.
Yes, a procrastination lesson.
A procrastination lesson, exactly.
And we've had the drain pipe that was blocked.
Yeah.
But that's another story. That was an animal who wanted to sneak in through the septic tank into the drain pipe.
Yeah.
And unfortunately lost its life in there, but blocked our drain pipe in the meantime. So that was not a very fun situation.
Let's talk about plumbing, okay? Because you bring up that story and you bring up a good point. Let's start with the most basic, okay? Something that every single homeowner that has a country house can do. And this year especially, there is a lot of new homeowners up north. Okay, there's a lot of people that have bought chalets. There's a lot of people who you weren't able to travel, so all of a sudden, I mean, the amount of people that come to us and they say, I want to refinance my house in the city, I want a down payment so I could buy a country house. It's insane this year, more so than I've ever seen in all my years as a mortgage broker.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the simplest things you can do, if you go to a Canadian Tire or you go to a Home Depot, what you're going to find is these big, massive jugs. I think they're maybe 4 liters or 6 liters. There's these big containers which basically have antifreeze inside them, and you could see it right away. It's called RV plumbing antifreeze. Some of them will say it's for toilets, but just the RV plumbing antifreeze is good enough. It's a pink thing. You can buy a couple of those jugs, and before you leave the country house, and this is not even if you're planning on closing up the country house for the winter. This is literally, I do this every single year. When we leave the country house and it's winter time, I pour some of this stuff in the toilet bowls, and then I flush it, and I pour a little bit more in the reservoir, and I shut off the water in the toilet. So you have the little valve at the bottom, you shut it off, and you fill that up. Why do I do that? You never know. If the weather changes and then all of a sudden you end up having this freeze that occurs in the house and the temperature drops in the house, at least your toilet bowl is not going to freeze and you're not going to end up coming back to a toilet that is cracked in half. Make sense?
Yes.
Which we've seen.
Yeah, and we used to also remove the water from the pipes. We used to pump some air into the water.
Into the pipe,
into
lines.
the water lines to just get rid of any water, because we did have burst pipes one time when we didn't remove the water properly, because we used to shut off the heating back in the day. Now, we leave the heating on a little bit at a lower temperature.
Okay. So, continuing kind of that where you were talking about, a lot of people, they don't have the knowledge necessarily to empty out the water lines. It's important, if you know that you're going to be going away from your country house for any extended period of time, whether it's a month, 2 weeks, anything like that, it is a good idea to empty out those lines. And it is a good idea to actually get a little air compressor. Again, you go to Home Depot, you go to Canadian Tire, you buy these little air compressors with a little hose, and get a plumber to come in and just install a nozzle and he'll show you how to do it, where you connect the nozzle to the actual plumbing line, and you shut off the water and you activate the compressor and you open up all your valves, and it'll basically empty out all the water. It's a good little house hack. It works really well, and it'll preserve your house from actually getting flooded. When we come back, we're going to be looking at roof care and getting your heating system ready for the winter. But first, we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center. You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about preparing your home for the coming winter. You can also reach us at the office at 514-680-4674, and you can visit us online at facebook.com/northeastmortgages or at our website at northeastmortgages.ca. So, Merav, we were talking a lot about country houses before traffic. Let's go into a little bit, even city houses here, right? So, we
were talking about plumbing.
Plumbing is kind of basic. I mean,
yeah.
There's not a lot that you can do in the city, but what we just talked about with respect to putting antifreeze in the toilets and stuff like that, again, if you're planning on going away for any extended period of time, it doesn't have to be your country house. It can actually be even your city house. It is a great idea to actually put in that antifreeze into the toilets to make sure that you're not going to end up with a surprise when you come back from vacation.
And I actually would recommend not turning off the heating if you're going to go away.
Oh, you can't. Your insurance won't even pay out.
We've seen that in one of our properties. The tenant went away for a month and they decided to turn off the heating. And the downstairs tenant called us saying, I've got literally a waterfall coming into my home. So that was quite the big damage that happened there.
$85,000 of damage.
Yeah, I remember. And so I would definitely not recommend turning off the heating because that could cause a huge damage. And your landlord, if you are a renter, can really go after you for that. Also, sprinkler systems. People who have sprinkler systems, they need to make sure they're emptied out properly because that too. It's pipes underground. They could burst.
And that's another thing, depending on how the weather is here in Montreal or if, whether even in houses in Montreal, you see the weather's warm. You're like, oh, I can put shutting down my sprinkler system. But we can't forget we live in Canada. We live in Montreal. Montreal, the weather changes very quickly. You can have, plus 30 one day and then all of a sudden it just slams down the temperature, right?
Yeah, we saw it last year.
Exactly.
Last year, we're like, it's beautiful. The kids were swimming, everything. The next week, we had a little bit of snow and we're like, oh my God.
Yeah. So I ended up, procrastinating again, calling the companies to come in and clear out the sprinklers. And luckily, I ended up finding a company who was willing to come in and do the work for us. And they didn't charge us anything extra. They were very nice. They're like, what do you mean you haven't closed your sprinkler? It's like, almost November, So it is important to just set yourself up a schedule every year and stick to it. So if it's October, it's October. If it's September, it's September, where you say, this is the weekend that I close the sprinkler system. This is this is the weekend that I do the maintenance on the furnace, which we'll talk a little bit more as we get through the show.
Yeah, I also wanted to talk about in the city, some of the houses are a little bit older, and we've seen that in our East End Hochelaga property where the pipes are very close to an outdoor wall.
Yes.
They freeze easily or they're in a crawl space under the house.
Yep.
There's ways to insulate those pipes because when it's minus 40 outside, you have no water. And we've actually put some permanent heating in the crawl space. We've put some insulating I call it noodles. I don't know what's the official term to cover those
insulation noodles, right? No problem.
But you know what I mean? That foam around the pipes.
Yeah.
And, we've even seen or given advice to our tenants on days where it's minus 40, leave a little trickle of water to just keep that water running. Again, it's only on those 4 or 5 crazy cold days that you have to do that.
And interestingly enough, it's the water that ends up freezing faster is actually hot water. So a lot of times people don't realize, they're like, oh, the hot water, I'm not going to let it run. So a lot of people know to leave their water run, but they'll let the cold water run thinking that the cold water is actually going to be the one that freezes. It's not the cold water that freezes. I mean, the cold water will freeze eventually as well, but the hot water will freeze faster than the cold water because the hot water, and you got to forgive me because I forget the science behind it, but basically there is less oxygen or something, or I mean, there's a whole science behind it. Anyways, hot water will freeze.
Yeah, we're not scientists.
Yeah, we'll freeze before it. I know that there's like a slew of texts that are coming in right now that are like, it's because of this reason. But anyways, okay.
I wanted to talk about the roof because we did see we were contacted by a couple of roof cleaning companies to mention to us, hey, you've got like 2 feet of snow on your roof. You really need to get rid of that. Your whole roof can collapse. I had no clue. Like, to me, a roof is angled and snow is just going to melt or slide off, but apparently not.
It's not the case. And especially it depends on the slope that you have. So if you have a larger, if the slope, the angle is bigger, then what you're going to end up getting is, you will have less weight going on the snow. But if the slope is not as much and you're at, let's say, 45 degrees, there's a lot of weight that's actually going onto the roof. And now all of a sudden you can actually see your supporting beams and stuff like that are underneath the roof. So underneath the plywood, everything, they get a lot of weight on them and they start to buckle. And when they start to buckle, the first year you might be able to get away with it. The second year, third year that it happens, especially with our winters, the way that they're, all of a sudden you end up getting hot weather, then cold weather, then hot weather, you end up getting ice formation. That ice, when it starts to form, it becomes very, very, very heavy, and it will crack those joists. And now all of a sudden you end up in a situation where not only do you have damage on the actual shingles or anything like that, but you're getting structural damage on the roof, and that is very expensive to repair. And we've actually seen, again, in country houses, where people go away, they shut down the house, they do everything that they're supposed to do, and they forget about the snow on the roof. The snow on the roof, they come back like in the spring and they're like, we're ready for our country place. And there's all of a sudden a mountain of snow inside the house.
Yeah,
because
we had friends whose roof collapsed because of snow, and it was not fun. They had to literally redo the whole house.
And again, let's talk about the insurance, because a lot of people are like, oh, the insurance will cover it. Insurance policies have very specific rules. And some of the rules are the house needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked after. So you need to constantly be going up and taking a look, or having someone go up there to make sure that everything is okay.
It's true.
And if you don't,
yep,
they can turn around and say, well, it's your negligence, and because it's your negligence, we're not paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in a world of problems at that point, because not only do you have the damage, but now you actually have to fix the damage. And we've actually had clients come to us and say, we need to refinance so that we can actually pay for these renovations that we need to do. When we come back, we're going to be looking at some winter preparation tips for your home. You're listening to The Real Estate Show on CJAD 800. You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about winter and how to get your home ready for the cold and the snow. Feel free to reach out to us at the office at 514-680-4674, or you can visit us online at nordest.ca or northeastmortgages.ca or .com, whichever one you prefer. So let's continue our discussion, Merav.
Yeah, I just feel like we should have had some sound effects lined up.
We should have, yeah. Well, there you go. You just did that.
We were talking about roofs and how you have to make sure to clean the snow off your roof.
Yeah.
Especially if we have heavy snow winters, like we have winters that are snow, rain, and at that point the weight is way too much for your roof to handle. I've seen people install de-icing cables. Do you believe in those, or they're too close to the edge?
No, 100%. 100%. So, you can, again, Home Depot, you buy these cables, and it kind of looks like, I call it like the Charlie Brown hair, okay? Because, Charlie Brown had like these zigzags on their hair. So you end up doing these zigzags kind of towards the bottom end of the roof, where it goes right against, almost right against the gutters, right? Mm-hmm. And I've even seen people run those cables in their gutters, right? And the reason why you do that is because you want to make sure that there's no accumulation of ice and snow that ends up in there. The thing that you have to be careful of, fall is coming. Cleaning your gutters, actually. We're talking about those de-icing cables, and running wiring through them and stuff like that.
If they're blocked and the water's not going through, the water accumulates, then it becomes ice, heavy, it pulls it off the house.
Which we've had that also.
Yeah, stop saying that. We look really irresponsible.
We are completely irresponsible when it comes to our country house. Because I get lazy when I get up there.
Maybe the insurance company's listening.
It's okay. I fix everything myself. But, it's true. And we've had that. I've actually had the gutters at our house literally come off because of ice. Yeah. And then I had to go up on the ladder and fix it. So these are all important parts of kind of, de-icing your roof and making sure that it's clean. And a lot of these companies that will come to you over the winter months and they'll say, do you want us to clean off your roof? It's not expensive.
No.
They'll charge you $150. I've seen them as low as 100. Some of them
Totally
will go
worth it.
200, but it's worth it. And it's not like you don't have to do it after every single snowfall, but you just do it,
once in the middle of the winter.
Maybe twice at the most. If you have some heavy snowfalls and there's an accumulation, you just do that. Heating system.
That's it. Time to shut down our AC units, cover them up outside for those who have those outdoor AC units. Make sure that everything is shut down properly, and time to prime your furnace.
Yes, get it ready. So let's talk furnace. Okay, so we've had a show recently where we talked about how important it was to maintain, your ducts and all that stuff. But it's not just about the ducts. Again, making sure that you have a proper schedule, a proper maintenance schedule for your home is just as important as making sure that you have a proper maintenance schedule for your car, right? You're not going to let your car, if you know that you have to change the oil every 10,000 kilometers, you're not going to all of a sudden say, well, I'm only going to change it at 100,000 kilometers. You're going to have problems. So it's important that your heating system is just like that. It's a fine-tuned machine that needs to be maintained. Part of that maintenance, if you have a forced air system, is you got to make sure that you're cleaning those vents. Sorry, not the vents. Excuse me. The filters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the ducts are important too. You do that every few years, but annually you need to actually be cleaning out those filters and changing them.
Otherwise you're breathing like air that's full of dust and things like that.
It also forces the fan.
That's true. The fan works harder to go through that filter that's filled with dust and
exactly. So it makes your system a lot more inefficient. And by making the system inefficient, now all of a sudden you're consuming more electricity or you're consuming more oil, right? Or natural gas, depending on what you're using. So something as simple, $15, $20 piece of equipment that you can buy at, again, Home Depot or wherever, all of a sudden can save you thousands of dollars in maintenance, or it could save you a ton of money in energy costs throughout the winter.
That's true. Also, what I found was practical for us is when we got those smart thermostats. It's got Wi-Fi. You can control it from anywhere. You could be abroad. Again, we're talking as if, all the borders are reopened and everybody's traveling again. And I'm crossing my fingers here. It'll happen soon. Basically smart thermostats to make sure you can keep track of the temperature. If there's an issue in the house, you're alerted. It's overheating. It's too cold, etc.
Hands down, one of the best investments that we ever did was that, because for us, going back to the country houses, we use, for the most part, we do use our country house in the winter. And when we use it in the winter, obviously I'm not going to keep the country house at 23 degrees. So we'll drop the temperature to, let's say, 17, 18 degrees to make sure that, there's still heating in the house, but, it's at an efficient temperature. And what I used to do, if you remember, on Thursday nights, I would finish my work at the office and I would drive up north. I would turn on the thermostat. Now, keep in mind, people that are listening to me, depending on how old you are, you're probably saying, this is crazy.
Yeah,
it's so
but 10 years ago, this didn't exist.
Exactly. So what I used to do is I would put in, I would drive up north, turn up the thermostat, get it to the right temperature so that when we would show up with the family on Friday, the house was at the right temperature. By introducing the digital thermostats, the ones that actually are either programmable or have Wi-Fi in them, what I was able to do is now all of a sudden I don't have to make that drive. I can just open up my app on my phone, increase the temperature, and lo and behold, the house is at a normal temperature when you're getting there. An important element that a lot of people forget, especially the people that have oil furnaces. Oil furnaces require a lot of maintenance. Almost as much, if not more, as what your just an electrical furnace would require. But an oil furnace, a lot of times, right off your hot water tank, your oil tank, what you end up getting is you have this little ball that's at the bottom. And in there's an actual filter. And that filter is there to filter out any contaminants that are in your oil tank. That filter gets clogged up. So over time, it gets clogged up. And when it gets clogged up, now all of a sudden, you end up having an inefficient flow of oil going into the furnace. Again, it doesn't have a good burn. By it not having a good burn, it actually increases your consumption. So it's a good idea whenever you have your furnace actually serviced, you actually get that filter changed as well. And there's other filters in the oil. There's your little nozzle, right?
That's what I was going to say, the nozzle of the of the motor that squirts the
oil.
actual oil. Yes.
Exactly. So you got to make sure that little system, that little thing in there, the little nozzle is actually changed annually.
Wow.
Okay. If you're not changing it annually, you can have problems. And again, it'll start off with something as simple as your furnace not running as efficiently. And eventually over time, when that thing gets clogged, what ends up occurring is now there's a backup, because the pump keeps going. It tries to push the oil through. But if it's clogged, all it's going to do is it's going to flood your actual your burner. And when it floods the burner, now all of a sudden you get an oil leak underneath it. You get an oil leak. Now you have contamination, right? You have contamination. You have to report that in a seller's declaration, right? If you decide to sell the house.
So one little nozzle can cause huge issues.
Again, little expenses could literally change everything. When we come back, we're going to be looking at some tips to save you some money and to save you some headaches with regards to your heating system, continuing the discussion, as well as some other little hacks that you can have on your house. Now we're off to the CJAD Traffic Center. Thanks for tuning in. Today's talk is about getting your home ready for winter and saving money on heating costs. So before we went off to traffic, we were talking about heating systems, and we had a good giggle during the traffic break of nozzles.
Lots of nozzles.
So let's talk chimneys now, right?
So not everybody has a gas chimney. Some people have a wood-burning chimney. If you're in certain areas
or
of
oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, certain areas are still allowed to burn wood. Some people are not aware of that. But what's that stuff that accumulates?
Creosote.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Santa Claus.
No, creosote. That's what the producer said, Santa Claus. But if you don't clean the creosote out of your chimney, so if you don't get a chimney sweeper to come in, Santa Claus is going to get dirty coming down the chimney.
But he can't come anyways this year with COVID.
That's right. It's true. Christmas has been canceled because of that.
So basically, the chimney is an important part that we forget about. If we use it, then definitely we need to sweep it once in a while to get rid of that stuff, because that creosote is actually not efficient.
Well, it can cause fires.
Okay.
I mean, this is the real issue with the creosote is as it builds up in there, it can cause a fire, and yes, your chimney is not as efficient having it in there. You can do something as simple as having, the chimney sweeping logs. They work pretty well. They'll actually, burn off the creosote in there.
Oh, that's good.
If you do have a fireplace or you have a wood burning stove in the house, it's a good idea to make sure that you actually have a little thermostat that goes on the chimney. So on the actual, if the chimney is exposed.
Yeah, on the duct.
On the duct. And that will actually measure the temperature in there. And if you pay attention to those little thermostats, thermometers, what you're going to notice is there's a safe zone to actually burn. You need to maintain it. You can't go above it because it's too hot. If you go below it, now you're forming creosote in the chimney.
And if your chimney is not in use, I found this very cool little gadget. It's called a chimney balloon.
Okay.
You put it in there and you blow it up, and you're blocking basically any cold air from coming into the house. Of course, this is if it's not in use. Do not take my advice and turn the chimney on, have a fire going in there.
Yeah.
So definitely it's for people who are not using their chimney. Now, with respect to drafts in general, I think it's really important to save on heating costs to draft-proof your house.
So definitely you want to make sure that all your windows, you have proper insulation. So you want to make sure that all the caulking around the windows is proper. You don't have any gaps. It's something simple that a lot of homeowners can actually take care of themselves. If you go around your windows and you see that, there's little cracks that are forming around the caulking because the caulking is old, just fill it in. Go around, take a look at the bricks, take a look at different parts of your house. Is there little fissures between the bricks? If there's little fissures, go and get yourself some clear silicone. Don't get colored silicone or anything like that, because all of a sudden now it's going to look disastrous. Just some clear silicone. You could even get matte silicone and just fill it in. And by doing that, what you're going to do is you're going to prevent water from infiltrating inside those bricks and possibly causing other issues in the winter. Because again, water goes in, it expands in the cold, it cracks, and all of a sudden you have bigger issues.
And with respect to draft coming in from one of those little cracks in the in your window caulking, I've seen also weather stripping tape that you could put on the inside of your window.
Sure.
Around your window. There's also the that film, the window insulation film, that we've purchased quite a bit of times, especially in older properties with older windows that don't have proper insulation. I really believe in those. It really keeps a lot of cold out, and it's basically like a big plastic sheet that goes over your window. And I know it sounds like it doesn't look good, but after you use the blow dryer on it and it becomes really nice and tight, you don't even notice it at all.
It's quite satisfying, actually.
It is actually
to tighten it up.
I agree.
I'm gonna add something to that. One of my original properties that I owned, so it was this building that I had in Hochelaga, and I still have it. But the windows in that building were very old, and they were just terrible. So what I used to do annually, before I actually changed the windows, because it took me a few years to actually get them changed, I would supply my tenants with this little box
with the insulation
film.
Nice.
And they would put it up themselves, and they appreciate it because it would obviously save on their heating expenses. And the reason why I do that, as tenants become more and more savvy with the rental board and everything, if they feel that there's drafts and there's issues coming in through the actual windows, they're going to go after you, and they're going to say, hey, we have inefficient windows. Our heating expense is higher because of your inefficient building. So we want you to compensate us for it. And plus, they're obviously uncomfortable.
Of course.
So you want to make sure that, people are comfortable. So the films are a great thing to actually do.
Sure.
You can also hang heavy curtains.
Yeah, that's for the windows, absolutely.
For the windows as well.
And for the doors, you could put weather strip tape around inside the windows or around the doors.
Yeah.
And what I love is that draft guard at the bottom of the door.
The one that looks like a snake?
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely, sure.
Especially like between the vestibule door and the main entrance, you can save on a lot of draft coming in.
100%. I agree tremendously with that. Now, this is for those of you that have ceiling fans. When we leave our country house, the ceiling fan runs all the time. And one of the reasons why I leave the ceiling fan run all the time, and the kids, and I think that you've even said to me, why do you leave it running? Is because I always want the air flowing around the house properly. Okay, so whatever ceiling fan is in there, I put it on and I have it flowing so that it's constantly moving air around the house. But there's a difference between a summer setting for a ceiling fan and a winter setting, right? And a lot of people don't realize that. So in the winter, you got to have the air getting pushed down so that you're getting that heat coming down from the ceiling. And in the summer, you want it reversed so that it's actually pulling it up and you're getting the cool air from the ground going upwards.
Yeah, and sometimes we forget to reverse it after the summer.
Yeah.
It needs to go clockwise to bring down the warm air.
Absolutely. And, I go to my parents' house, and my parents have ceiling fans, and they have very high ceilings. And my mom, every year she calls me and she says the same thing. I don't know why the house is so cold. And I say to her, did you reverse the fans? And she's like, oh, no. And she doesn't. And she's like, oh, now it's too hot. So.
And one last thing you always tell me, heat the people, not the house. Go put on a sweater.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Put on a sweater. Don't walk around in a tank top and shorts in the middle of winter because your heating bill is going to be astronomical. Put on a sweater and it'll save you literally thousands of dollars in some cases. Yep. Merav, we're out of real estate.
And next week we're off for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone. But if people want to reach us?
You can call at the office 514-680-4674, or you can reach us online at northeastmortgages.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/northeastmortgages.
Till next time, everyone, have a blessed week. Have a great Thanksgiving next weekend. Love you all.